We cannot allow that border to remain that porous. And you can just look through the last few years and see the attacks that we've had on our soil here. You see the attacks on other Western governments in Europe that are taking place. We have to be much more sober and responsible about the way we manage our border and our immigration policy. Now, having said that, I want everybody to understand, I've been doing this a good long while up there while immigration has been an issue. I am firmly convinced that once we seal the southwest border, to the extent it's humanly possible to seal it, and we can do a great deal, dealing with the folks who are here illegally in a humane fashion is not going to be that heavy a lift. We are not that far apart on how to deal with it. For example, DACA and DAPA are unconstitutional practices that the Obama administration put into place. But having said that, if that was a post-secure wall policy, probably Republicans would embrace it. It's about sealing the border. And then how we deal with the immigrants in here is not going to be that hard. Nobody believes that we should take everybody up and put them on planes and buses and send them out of here. But we got to find a way to make sure that the folks who do stay aren't criminals, aren't drug traffickers, and don't mean us harm.
Let's go on this side of the room over here. The man has two fingers up.
I'd like to
wait on the microphone.
I'd like to continue on that. I think what she was directly addressing, and then I don't want to be speaking for you, was President Trump not speaking about illegal immigration, but speaking about legal immigration and limiting it to people who speak English. We're going to invest $1.3 million. Will you commit today to stand against that, so that way people who do speak Afrikaans can come here and become doctors? So that way people who come here from Bangladesh who don't speak English can become some of our greatest physicists? Will you stand against that policy?
No, I will not. I think President Trump is dead on the money right, that policy. We have literally 90% of the immigrants that come in legally now are unskilled. We have many efforts. You just talked about a couple of them. We need physicians, we need engineers, we need people with education, higher education, to come in and help us build our country. But they need some basic skills like speaking English before they come into our society. So I think he's right, and I'm going to support him 100% on that policy.
Okay, let's go back here to the man in the black shirt. Right, you're good. That's it.
Well, I was going to ask something else.
Wait on the microphone. Wait on the
There
microphone.
we go. Right there.
I was going to ask something else, but your comment just disturbs me, because this policy that you are advocating would have prevented my wife's grandparents from entering the country. They immigrated, they're Jews who immigrated before World War II. They could not speak English. They learned English from New York public schools. They gave birth to people who became lawyers, who became architects and professionals. That policy would have prevented them out, would have prevented them from entering, and it would have prevented most of the ancestors of immigrants, possibly even yours, from entering the country.
No, sorry. Scottish would have kept them out of here. But having said that, you make a very, very good point, and I don't disagree for previous times. There have been previous times in our country's history where we needed a lot of labor that we just didn't have. So to allow huge immigration from countries like China or other countries where they could speak English, or not Ireland, but Germany, was it something that was an acceptable burden that we had to take for the benefit of getting the labor that we needed to build the country at the stages we were in. Now we don't need that kind of labor. We need a different kind of labor. And I think it's reasonable to impose different standards on those immigration slots.
I'll take the gentleman right here. Wait on the microphone. Here it comes.
I'm George Dunn from Opelika. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Your party has run on balancing the budget for decades. We've got $20 trillion in debt. We're talking about spending another $1 trillion on infrastructure, increasing the defense spending. I have no problems with any of that. How are we going to possibly balance the budget when we're decreasing taxes? Would you support tariffs on imported goods, and at the same time support American jobs, because that is the one thing Republicans and Democrats have agreed on in the last 30 years. Let's send all of our factories to China.
Yeah. That's a great question about a real problem for our country that most people aren't thinking enough about. And the fact is, tariffs are appropriate in some situations. But as a general rule, we want to have as much free trade as possible for countries that want to treat us the same way and not have an unlevel playing field.
Are there any of those countries that treat us the same way?
Some, but getting to the heart of this question is about the fact that we have this enormous debt and deficit spending that's going on. And the truth is, two things have to happen before that's going to really be seriously addressed. And it's not just Republicans that would like to see a balanced budget. Democrats would like to see a balanced budget. I mean, it's healthy for anybody to want to have a balanced budget. But the fact is that we've got to get our economy out of the ditch. And one of the best ways to stimulate the economy is tax reform. I mean, we've seen it happen historically. This is not something that Mike Rogers invented. This is an economic theory. So we're going to have to visit our tax code. You can't have a 35% corporate tax rate and compete with the rest of the world when the average is 15, 16, 17%. You just can't. You can't expect Google or Apple to bring money from, let's say, Ireland or Scotland, where they're paying 5% tax, to the United States and give us 35% when they walk in the door. You have an obligation, a fiduciary obligation to your shareholders not to be irresponsible. That is irresponsible. Having said that, if you're Apple or Google and you've got $2 trillion sitting in accounts overseas, where would you rather that money be? In the richest market on the planet. So I think they're willing to pay a higher tax rate than where they are now to come here, but not unreasonable. So we got to find out what that sweet spot is. It may be 10%, it may be 8%, we don't know, to get that repatriation of money. But what I would say about the money that we're talking about on defense spending, it doesn't matter if your deficit is eliminated and your debt is gone, if you're dead. And there are people that are trying to kill us around the world. The world has not been more dangerous since I was an adolescent, an early adolescent, than it is right now. And we are the world's only superpower. We have to do what we have to do to keep us free, safe, and secure, and that's going to require defense spending. Now, one last point on that. We also have to be mindful that we have nearly $20 trillion in debt and some of the lowest interest rates that we've seen in 50 years. And they aren't going to stay where they are. As these interest rates start to tick up and we start having to pay adjusted interest payments, it can decimate us as a country. So we've got to get our economy humming, but we also have to visit in an adult fashion entitlement spending, which is 2/3 of our budget spending.
Okay, let's go with this man in the gray suit. Right on the microphone.
Heard that enough. So let's bring two issues back together for a second. Let's talk once about the RAISE Act, which is immigration, all right? Most people cannot get into this country under the RAISE Act, regardless of whether or not they speak relatively good English, because it's limited by age, because the increased number of points available do not apply to the majority number of people. Most people are not Olympic athletes. Most people do not have a Nobel Peace Prize. President couldn't get in under his own immigration plan. I think that's hilarious too. The employment visas are still capped at 140,000 people per year. Increasing the skill set and limiting the number of individuals, generally who are older, does not make us more competitive globally. In addition to the fact that limiting immigration at the same time as a national birth rate low and an increasing aging population of the baby boomers retire means that there is a labor shortage and the economy does not grow. You want to talk about economy?
Do you have a question?
I do.
Well, let's do it.
I do have a question. You want to talk about raising the debt ceiling in the economy, all right? There are talks to remove, $1 trillion from Medicaid over the next 10 years. That's 20% of Medicaid's budget. And 1 million people in Alabama are on Medicaid. You're talking about removing 22% of the SNAP budget, and there are 45,000 families in this district that are on SNAP. You want to cut 22% of their benefits. That's 10,000 families. Are you really willing to cut immigration, reduce the labor force, cut those benefits, and cut all those people off, and reduce our economy in the process.
Okay.
I don't know that I agree with the latter statistics there, but yes, on the first, I am. I'm willing to restrain immigration policies to what I described earlier, which I think are appropriate for our day and time. As far as the cuts you're talking about, I'm not familiar with where those numbers come from.
We got
I mean,
facts.
the president proposes the budget. That's probably where you got it, is the president's budget. The president's budget is going nowhere in this Congress. And that's true of every president's budget since I've been there. I've been there 15 years. Every president proposes a budget with obscene cuts in it because they want to look austere and responsible. It just depends on what they cut as to how they're playing to their base. But the Congress always says thank you and puts it in the drawer, and then we draft our own budget. You heard me say earlier, the toughest vote we have every year is a budget vote because we have to find that point that we can live with. It's not the president's numbers, but it's not also what the Democrats want or what the Republicans want. It's what can we get implemented. So my guess is those numbers you came up with are the president's numbers, and I don't think they have a chance of going forward.
You're still not committing, though, if you're going to support.
I'm not committing a budget until I see a budget.
No, I'm not asking about
we have not had a budget
sir.
proposal yet, and we won't have it until I get back in September. I told you all that in the outset.
But will you commit to protecting Alabama citizens from budgets like that?
I will commit to protecting Alabama citizens from budgets that I think are inordinately harmful to my people. I'm there to be your representative. But I can just tell you, 35% of the people in any election year vote for the other person. You're never going to get somebody as your representative that's going to make everybody happy. It doesn't happen.
Okay, let's go to the back of the room back there. Stand up, please, Susan. Okay, wait for the microphone.
Excuse me. I want to say first that I also am a Christian and in fact a minister here in the Auburn area. And you said a quote, I found on your website, my faith is central to my existence. And your voting record shows that you import Christian values and principles into your governance. And so I was hoping you could reconcile something for me. Maybe there aren't legal ramifications for it this year. As you said, healthcare is not coming up again in this Congress. But let's hypothetically assume you get reelected next year. It will eventually continue to come up. And so I was wondering if you could reconcile something for me. So Jesus healed people very, very often, just all the time. And then he sent his followers out to do the same. And so as a follower of Christ today, I see a wonderful opportunity for this country to say we will care for everyone and we will offer healing. And so you seek to use government in many different kind of areas. You use, for around social issues that aren't even mentioned in the gospel.
Let's do a question.
Right, my apologies. So I was wondering, how would you represent your position to Jesus, where he's standing in this room, your continued statements and votes against providing health care for everyone? This government we're capable of that, if we would commit to it. And as a Christian, I wonder how you would stand up for what you've said and done with your voting record if Jesus was in here today.
I think he would want me to make sure that we had a Medicare and Medicaid system that was sustainable so that we could provide health care. And that requires some responsible decisions to be made. I think he would want us to make sure that people who were poor and elderly, but who were able-bodied, were given a fair chance to get access to health insurance that they could afford. Now, I didn't interrupt you. That they would have a chance to get access to health insurance that they could afford without being unfairly penalized. I'm just telling you, there are people out there that both spouses working, that cannot afford health insurance under this situation that we've got. That's unacceptable, and Jesus loves those people as much as he does poor folks.
Okay, hold it just a minute. You asked your question. This lady over here, wait on the microphone.
Hi, my name is Lacey, and that's my son John, asleep in his stroller. And we came today to discuss health care, which I think a lot of us have. And you've already said that it's dead in this Congress, but you also said that we can't do anything in this country if we are dead. So my son was born with factual association, which has caused a number of health issues, birth defects, including his heart, his GI tract, and his spine. So his health care is very expensive, and he is currently being served under the elderly and disabled waiver here in Alabama. And my concern is for him and our family, and for the other untold numbers of families in this area, in this country. How are you going to protect Medicaid so that my kid can still get services, so that those who are the most vulnerable in our community can still get services, with or without the private market? We need Medicaid, and we can't keep cutting it.
That's a great question. One of the things, and we want to make sure, folks, like you just described, I don't know of anybody that wants them to have health insurance or access to it. But one of the things that I would like to see happen, and many in the Congress would, is to see us block grant Medicaid to the states. So the states could decide what best fits their constituents and their populations. Because the truth is, Alabama's population is dramatically different than Illinois, California, New York. I think, and you elect the people that serve in the legislature and serve as governor in this state, just like you do in Congress. And in fact, they're closer to you. I would think that you would like to see, as long as the dollars weren't diminished, those Medicaid matching dollars that come from the federal government go to the states, and let the states structure Medicaid systems that better comport with your individual needs.
Medicare for all.
Okay, let's go with the gentleman back there with the checkered shirt. Wait on the microphone.
Hey, Representative Rogers, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I'm a faculty in the horticulture department, so my question has to do with kind of the intersection of immigration and agriculture. Okay. And obviously, it's a big issue finding workers to do this hard work, right, for low pay. I work with the nurseries and greenhouse operations throughout the state. And, even though they're all very conservative and most of them are members of the Republican Party, they're very frustrated with the Republican Party and just Congress in general, the government, and that they just feel like they're in limbo. The past 20 years, as migration has become a bigger issue, from southern countries coming, and that's been a source of labor, I just feel like we're just in limbo. And they're saying, like, look, the Congress needs to provide some leadership, and let's get in place policies, right, where we can get these low-cost workers instead of just kind of just the short clips, like we just got to be strong on illegal immigration. Okay, but what's the real policy? Either that, or we need to prepare people they say if we can only hire American-born people, as you say, 90% of these low-wage workers, if they can only hire American-born people to do that, they're going to have to drastically increase their wages, which passes on the cost to everybody. And nobody wants to see their agricultural products increase by 20%. What is the guidance, the leadership that your party or your institution, Congress, House of Representatives, what do you see as a vision to? I know it's a complex issue, but more than just the little short.
Direct your question.
I get his question, and that's an excellent question, and it's very appropriate for this district, given how much agriculture we have here, and there are real problems that literally have nothing to do whether Democrats in office or Republican. The Bush administration had the same struggles with the seasonal labor, just like the Obama administration did, about how to let them in, let enough in, and get the work done. It's a very cumbersome bureaucratic system. It can be made easier, but here's the problem, and the reason why it really hasn't been easy for either, and that's just my experience. I've had Bush, Obama, and Trump as the presidents I've had. And I'll focus on Bush and Obama because they both had multi-years to try to address this, is that one of the main sources of our illegal immigration population is overstays. Visa overstays. People who came here legally, either on a student visa or just to visit or seasonal labor, and they just didn't leave. They just faded into the society. One of the things that I think President Trump is doing a good job of is helping find that, stop that practice. Let people know if you come here, we will find you, and you will have to leave when your visa's expired. So don't come here thinking about overstaying. And once we've got those policing systems in place, it is going to be much easier to relax the processes by which people come in on seasonal and other kind of visas, because it will be easier to know who they are, where they are, and if they left or not. Right now, it is very difficult, almost impossible. But I think that's the answer, but that will only happen after the border seals and we have practices in place to enforce the current law about whether you should be here or not. One of the criticisms of President Obama was that he decided not to go after people who are here illegally. He did a really good job of going after the most vicious, violent criminals who came in. But he basically instructed ICE, leave everybody else alone. That's unacceptable. And as long as if that were to be the case under Trump, it would remain unacceptable. Because he went after in a serious way violent people. But we had a lot higher people coming in, the number of people coming in than we had before too, because people didn't feel a threat like they do now. Listen, I want to finish my answers before y'all start shouting.
All right, let's go with the lady back here. Wait on the microphone.
Oh, thank you. I definitely looking forward to counting the number of times you've said Obama in this meeting and then the number of times you've said our current president's name. But I'd like to ask a question about our current president. You mentioned that you aspire to be the chair of the Homeland Security Committee or the Armed Services Committee, which would really put our district in a national spotlight. We haven't talked about defense today, and you've taken over $60,000 in contributions.
Do you have a question?
Industry, yeah. Thank you for not interrupting.
Question.
So you used to talk a lot about Russian aggression, and you were in Poland, and that affects us, Afghanistan, defense, and so on. But we have concrete evidence of Russian aggression right now. We have concrete evidence of their attack on our election. We have evidence of their donations to Republicans. So
get to your question, really. Get to your question. Ask the question so those people can answer.
Will you promise that you will protect us from Russian attacks on our electoral system, even when those attacks benefit Donald Trump and your party?
When somebody produces hard evidence of that fact, I have every confidence that there will be prosecution.
Oh, well, hold it now, hold it. Listen, you had a question. Let's go around the room.
Clarification, what is evidence in your opinion? What kind of evidence would you need to see?
Clear-cut evidence that there was Russian manipulation of the electoral process that changed the outcome of the election. We haven't seen it. You can argue all you want to. We haven't seen it. If we had seen it, there would be prosecution taking place. Ma'am, I'm not going to get into a debate with you about this. You asked a question. If you want me to answer it, I'm happy to use President Trump's name as many times as you want to listen to it. But I will say, in talking about Russian aggression, you're right. I've spoken a lot about Russian aggression because I have been a vigorous opponent of Russia and their activity in recent years, particularly as it relates to our allies in Eastern Europe. And you're exactly right. And what it could mean for us, because if we are not serious about Russia's aggression into Ukraine and their threat to our NATO allies, we could end up in World War III. And if you don't want to see enormous blood and treasure spent for a World War III, we better be paying attention to what they're doing over there with their efforts. This is a very dangerous world, and if it hadn't been for North Korea's recent developments in their missile capability, we would still be focused more inordinately over there than we are anywhere else in the world. Right now, everybody in this room better be thinking about North Korea because it's a very, very dangerous situation. Of course, yeah, we have a lot of threats. Cyber attacks are one of them.
Okay, let's go back to the gentleman. I believe he has a Vietnam hat.
Actually, my name is Ted Cristobal. I live in Opelika. I'm a two-war combat veteran. And I really don't have any question. I just want to make comment on the things I hear around here. First, I would like to talk about immigration. I came here in 1970 as a resident alien. I have no problem getting my citizenship because the new, whatever they call the new immigration of President Trump is passing, wherein English is a requirement. It's always been there. When I went to Atlanta to get my citizenship, I was asked 5 questions in English 2 days ago, talking about people coming in that not knowing how to speak English. I was CVS. I was behind a lady who can even speak English. So coming in and knowing to speak English, is not going to help them any at all. Secondly, one thing that I would like to mention also is about this healthcare. Yeah, I have a good healthcare. I'm going to retired military. So is my son-in-law and my daughter because they got a good job. But I have friends who have a problem with the healthcare. I really wish that the Senate, actually not the Congress, it's the Senate, is the one who messing up with the changing of the healthcare law here in this country. And you mentioned about John McCain. I'm a Vietnam vet. He's a Vietnam vet. I appreciate his service, but I don't like his politics. Arizona had the highest premium increase in 160.
Let's do a question. Let's do a question.
I have no question. I'm just making a comment on what I think I hear here. Because all I hear is always against something. I want to say that I support what the President and Congressman Rogers are doing.
Thank you. As the blonde lady back here,
I agree that the world is a dangerous place, and I am very alarmed by the volatile, unpredictable, dangerous rhetoric coming out of the West Wing. And the only thing that helps me sleep at night is knowing that we have 2 other branches of government that can act as a check. How willing are you to put country above party and act as that check?
That is a great question, and I have always put my country above my party. I want you to understand that I fully support the rhetoric coming from President Trump, because the rhetoric we've had from his predecessors, not just his immediately preceding administration, but the administration before that, have got us into the situation we're in now. Let me let you know, when I talked about Eastern Europe, I've been to Eastern Europe. As y'all know, I chair the Strategic Forces Subcommittee on Armed Services, which is the subcommittee that oversees our missile defense systems, our nuclear enterprise, as well as our military satellites. We have missile defense capability for NATO in many of those regions over there. And we've been over there visiting. In my first 2 visits, it was alarming how concerned our allies in those countries were that we were no longer a reliable ally because of the red line being drawn in Syria and being backed away from it. And because of Ukraine being invaded and rhetoric saying there will be consequences, and there was never any consequences. Those things emboldened the Russian president. They emboldened the Syrian president. They emboldened the Iranian president. And they emboldened Kim Jong-un. But let me tell you, this last visit, while we were flying over there on military aircraft, is when the president sent the 39 cruise missiles into Syria and bombed that airport. The attitude in every country I visited, Romania, Ukraine, Poland, and Estonia, that trip, was dramatically different. They were so relieved that the United States would now act again against aggression, because they count on us to be a check on the power of Russia in that region. And if they ever get to the point they don't believe they can count on us anymore, they will start looking for a new big brother, and it will probably be Russia. That is not in our best interest.
This gentleman with the tan shirt. Wait on the mic.
My mind's going around the room like ricochet rabbit. I get touch on a lot of this. I got a really, really simple one. And I know this from personal experience. Don't ask me how. I'm a recovering alcoholic drug addict, 14 years sober. When I needed to help, the medical people were there free of charge. So I don't believe that you can't get medical coverage or care in the United States when you're indigent. Number two, if one of Opelika's finest, Auburn's finest, knocks at my door with a search warrant, or the FBI, State Department, federal marshals want my computer, want paperwork, I gotta let them in, or I'm going to jail. Why is Hillary Clinton not in jail?
Well, I'll give the same answer to that I gave when we talked about President Trump. I'm convinced that if there's evidence presented that she violated criminal statutes, then I think she'll be prosecuted. I do, and I'm saying, both these two cases are still potentially viable. Nothing says people aren't looking at President Trump now or former Secretary of State.
Let's go back to the back side of that gentleman right there.
Roger, we really do appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you.
My name's Robert Williams. I just want to know what you think the status or future of the Dodd-Frank and particularly the CFPB.
I have optimism, but it's measured optimism. As most people probably are aware, the House passed a bill out of the House about 5 weeks ago that rolled back many of the Dodd-Frank laws and eliminated the CFPB. It's gone to the Senate, but as we just saw with health care, the Senate is a completely different animal. I don't know. I know our bill does not have a chance in its current form to be taken up. Hopefully they will pass some counterpart that will get us into conference and we can work on some reasonable middle ground. The truth is, Dodd-Frank has some good parts in that it put some constraints on Wall Street and the mega banks and what they were doing. But frankly, our community banks were never the problem. And our regional banks were not the problem. But that's where most of our small and medium-sized businesses get capital. They need to have some relief from the federal government so we can get this economy moving. And 80% of the jobs come from small businesses. So that's my hope, is that we can get the Senate can get something out of their chamber so we can get in the conference committee. And my guess is you will see some moderated view of what came out of the House, if anything comes out of conference, to get to a vote by both chambers and get to the president's desk. But thank you for that question. I really think that issue.
For the front.
There's a lot of people behind you.
Yeah,
but
she's not going to let you answer the question.
I want people to understand. I really think that when it comes to our economy, the question he just asked has greater implications on our future economy. A lot of people think that healthcare has been more of a drag on our economy, this Obamacare, than Dodd-Frank. No. This has choked off more capital from businesses and been more of a drag on our economy than the Affordable Care Act. I'm sorry, James.
This gentleman right over here.
My name is Sim Floyd. I have a question about North Korea. We made a deal with Iran that effectively shut down their nuclear weapons program. Would you support making a similar deal with North Korea to do the same thing?
We did not make a deal with Iran that shut down their nuclear weapons program. In fact, it stepped it up. They are closer to a deliverable ICBM missile now than they ever were. And I am convinced, and I'm not going to talk about anything classified, but I will make reference to a Washington Post story that came out in the last week that asserted sources within the defense DNI's office that North Korea now has a small enough nuclear weapon that they put on the tip of an ICBM that could survive re-entry. If North Korea does in fact have that, don't think for a second they won't sell it to Iran. We're in a much more dangerous place now with Iran's deal than we were before it was passed. And I absolutely would not agree to one with, would not go along with one for North Korea like that. North Korea needs to dismantle its nuclear weapons program, period.
Okay, let me mention this to everybody. Everybody remain seated after we finish up. We're pretty close to the end. I'll take this young lady right here. Wait on the microphone. Make a quick question now because we're really close on time.
Okay, Representative Rogers, my father died when I was 15. He had a disease that had been killing him for years and never went to the doctor because he couldn't afford it. My stepfather is also dying. He's in renal failure and diabetes is a catalyst for it. He can't get Medicare because he doesn't meet the age requirement. My mother also has diabetes and a host of other issues, but she works full-time at her minimum wage fast food job, and her so-called insurance through her employer is useless. It's really expensive for someone of limited means and covers hardly any medication, forcing her to ration the little bit of medication that she has. My husband, who has epilepsy, is fortunate enough to be able to use the university's student insurance and obtain the medication he needs. If not, he could literally die. I work full-time, but my employer doesn't provide health insurance. I have to get it through the ACA. The reason I shared this with you, I'm sharing with you these very personal stories about how the current for-profit healthcare system has significantly and negatively and continues to impact those I love most. It is a system that criminalizes poverty.
Good question.
No, I'm getting the question. I'm a human and I need to be engaged with.
Well, come on.
All right. So the punishment for which is death. Okay. The justice system lets murderers off easier than that. So where is the justice for my family and people like my family? You claim to be pro-life, Representative Rogers, but you stop simultaneously signing death warrants for tens of thousands of people per year every time you vote against health care. What about the tired and the poor and the huddled masses? Excuse me, I was not done.
It's 12 o'clock and the meeting's supposed to be over.
Will you support HR 676? That's my question.
Okay.
I have no idea what HR 676 is.
Are you
It's Medicare for all.
Medicare, what do you see the title?
Are you serious?
Do you realize how many bills are introduced every year? I see
Sit
people
in.
with all their numbers. Give me a title and I'll tell you if I have an opinion about it. But no, I will not support Medicare for all. That's what the Democrats have wanted for years, and I'm not going to go up. We can't afford it. It's not sustainable. But I'll tell you what, Jim, let's do this. Let me take two more questions.
If you don't do your job, we'll find someone that will.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the very back there. The gentleman is right there. Wait on the microphone.
Thank you for being here. I got a letter from you a couple of weeks ago when I asked about the situation with Russia. And in your letter, you said something about fake news. I think many of us in this audience, whether Democrat or Republican, are alarmed with the divide in our country and just the way that things are going. I would ask you what you can do to help reduce the separation between the two parts of our citizenship that are dividing us asunder. Would you consider using language that is not as full of rhetoric to help bring us together?
That's a great question.
Good question.
And most of y'all know that I've been doing this a long time, and I historically haven't. But I think we've gotten to a point where news has been manipulated in such a way that it has caused most of our society to not take it as reliable when they hear news now. Because it's both sides are abusing it. There's nothing unique to the liberal news. The conservative news sources, I think, have manipulated it inappropriately as well. And I think it's incumbent on people like me, when I see a story that I do know the facts about, to call it out when it's fake news, whoever the source is. And don't get me wrong, I'm just as aggravated with Fox News as I am in Mississippi. They're both as bad.
This gentleman right here. And this is the last question.
Brian McGee. I have a very simple question. It's a yes or no type question. And that is, you have expressed the idea that, you've been in Congress a long time and that you've talked with your constituents and know them and what have you. But I'm not so sure that us, all know the opposite types of arguments for things. And therefore, I know that you're running for Congress next year. My question is, will you agree to doing debates with Democratic candidates?
I have no reason to do a debate with a Democrat candidate.
What about democracy? What about democracy? We have a right to hear both sides.
You do it. Everybody gets a democracy. You get to vote every 2 years on whether you want your congressman to be me or somebody else. If you think that I haven't done my job, you get a chance to vote for whoever runs against me. But I listened to you while you asked your question. I'm just going to listen while I answer it. The fact is, if I've got a Democrat opponent who doesn't have any money and wants to be able to get his profile, her profile raised, they want a debate. They want me to help them get elected. It's not my job to help them raise their profile. It's my job to represent my
Some people want to serve the people, Representative Rogers. Serve the people.
You're going to get thrown out. Calm down. No, you're not.
And the advertising is what convinces people to do something. It has nothing to do with issues. It's who's got the most money.
Well, he answered your question. All right, everybody remain seated till Congressman Rogers leaves the room and everything. So we've answered all the questions.
No, you didn't answer all the questions.
True.